hear from Kurt Cordes from Enigmatic Global in New Zealand.
Greetings, everybody. How you doing? Awesome. I'm going to be powering through this pretty quick. Just to mention, the camera there is for me, not for you guys, and I'm not going to record the Q&A session. This is mainly for people back home, some of the practitioners to actually share what I'm talking about, which is kind of a loaded thing because back home I'm all over the place. So I'm born, raised Canadian, but my parents are actually from St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbean. That's what I call my aquatic home. And I now live in Aotearoa, New Zealand, on the other side. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is actually those two homes and how I see them coming together from a aquatics and water safety perspective. So really quickly, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, if you see the scale at the top, that's in miles, that's 10 miles, so that gives you an idea of scale. This is a small little island, about 110,000 people, give or take. The topography changes dramatically from the large island, which is very lush, agricultural, mountains, right down to your beautiful sand beaches down in the Grenadines, down the chain. And obviously a whole lot of water going on. And that is where I learned to swim. So those rocks, that's the actual place. A friend of mine, Maddie Huggins, took those pictures. And that is the place where I was putting around with a mask and fins and snorkel. It was not in a swimming pool, and it was not in swim lessons. So we are very aquatic people there. Even though agriculture is a mainstay, aquatics is a part of life. So when I graduated school, I did marine environment, and I actually went down there, became a dive instructor, did some sailing, marine parks manager for about 5 years or so, worked with the system from the bottom to top, I should say bottom, so community to cabinet, essentially, and was able to actually do a lot of community work. But water is life there. We're on the water every day. Transport, we're going across on the ferry, that's typical. Water going across the channel. It's always on the water. Our food comes from the water. So when I went to Aotearoa, New Zealand, this is about an 18-year gap between the two and lots of traveling along the way. One of the first things I got into was a regional strategy for the Bay of Plenty. And they were looking at water safety in the Bay of Plenty. And my job was to go to all the marginalized communities and all the people that were at the extremes. And what I came up with, I felt like we're focused on individuals a lot. We're not focused on community enough. So I came up with this triangle, the idea of individual, family, community, and it takes a village, which I love hearing what's being said here, the idea of community resilience. That was the kind of thing where I was pushing at the time. It wasn't adopted, but I took that, and now in the Global Swim program that I do, I'm kind of trying to leverage that as I go forward. Understand the water, respect the water, sense of community. Those three things are the things I've built into the program along the way that you keep saying over and over again. We're not safe unless we're together. So during this journey in Aotearoa, I've embraced the acronym JEDI, so Aquatic JEDI or JEDI Aquatics. Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion. The justice is incredibly important because if you're having a party and you go, oh, hey, I want to invite you to my party, come on over, and the person says, well, that's great, but that's my house. It doesn't necessarily go over very well. Is it right? Is it just? Is it fair? And asking those questions all the time. Indigenous practice, a lot of stuff coming out of Aotearoa, and I've been inspired by that, especially the term whakapapa, looking at our own heritage, which kind of led me to look around. Duke Kahanamoku, for anybody who knows him, looking at him as well, and the term aloha, which I didn't realize was so powerful. The idea of togetherness, the idea of we share breath, we share spirituality. And then that book, Undercurrents of Power, Dr. Kevin Dawson looked at West African aquatics at the time when the Europeans came, all the way through slavery. I'm actually basing my PhD thesis on this, and as I read it, I'm going, yes, 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 because we were aquatic. My heritage, my ancestors were aquatic people when they came over. So I was able to embrace that. So when I went back home to St. Vincent and the Grenadines this summer, or our summer, July, August this year, I was looking with new eyes. I was looking at parents teaching their children to swim in the water. Again, no swimming lessons. I'm looking at young boys who are literally amphibious as they go forward. They're running along the rocks, jump in the water, they're back on the rocks again. I'm seeing this play out, the stuff that I was reading, the stuff that I was looking at. So I looked at the drowning rate. 6.9 per 100,000 is the third highest in the Pan American area. And that's all I found. There's nothing else. So there's work going on, but there's no record. There's no published data. I was actually told to change my thesis because there's nothing there. I'm going, but I live there. I need to know this stuff. So I started looking on record in the newspapers. I only got to about 30 before I had to stop because it was too emotional for me over the past 10 years. There's a lot going on. In every way, coastal, missing people out at sea, people being swept out to sea because of high rains. All this stuff is going on. There is intervention going on the ground. So the fishery department has been training fishermen in a recent project funded by the FAO. Great project, money ran out, so they're wondering what to do next. Calvert Garraway is the head lifeguard. They're just establishing that now. Great project, they want to get it on the ground, community organized, but they're still trying to find their feet in how to do that. Vincent Coast Guard is doing a lot of the heavy lifting from signage right out to rescues out at sea. Great, everything's going well, but again, there's momentum going. There's a little bit of need for more. And a lot of community organization stuff going on. This is not from government, this is actually being funded locally, teaching young people to sail, which is great. And we have our first person going to the World Championships this year as well. But again, getting all this into the community, I see all this potential. How do we weave it together? So to conclude, I'm seeing a lot of parallels between Australia, New Zealand, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I saw that my own heritage and what I experienced when I was young has fed my practice in New Zealand. And I see a lot of what I'm learning in New Zealand feeding the practice I can share back home in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Specifically from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the idea that you have a small system, I think we should be focusing more on small island nations as testing grounds for things that we can actually expand on a larger scale in larger countries. Vice versa, the indigenous perspective of New Zealand has really inspired me in how I would approach going back home and talking to everybody about community action. So I will leave that up there, and I'll just end by saying water connects us, that whole idea that we are one and we can actually leverage this. It's not only drowning prevention, it's how do we protect our neighbor, how do we protect each other, and how do we learn about each other. And that's me.